My parents said they were broke, yet secretly gave my sister $1,000 a week while making me pay her tuition. So I tore off their mask with one cold reply. For most of my life, I worked hard. I'm talking about the kind of hard work where you sacrifice your sleep, your weekends, and your sanity just to keep things afloat. It always felt worth it. My parents raised me to believe that family comes first, and if you're the oldest, you step up. That's the way it works. So when my parents came to me and practically begged me to help with my younger sister, Ashley, I didn't hesitate. They said they were drowning financially. College was just too expensive, and Ashley's scholarships barely made a dent. They told me they had exhausted all their options, that no one else could help her, and that if I didn't step in, Ashley's future would be ruined. "Please," my mother said one night after dinner, "she needs this. You're the only one who can help her right now." Like an idiot, I bought it. For the last year and a half, I worked overtime, double shifts, freelance gigs, whatever it took. I scraped together enough to pay for Ashley's tuition, her books, and even her meal plan. It wasn't easy. My own social life virtually disappeared. I downgraded my apartment to something cheaper and started cutting out small luxuries like going out to eat or buying new clothes. But I told myself it was worth it. Family comes first, right? Meanwhile, Ashley was acting like her usual selfish, spoiled self, completely oblivious to how much I was doing for her. She wasn't exactly humble about her lifestyle either. She'd show up at family dinners with the latest gadgets, designer bags, and trendy clothes. At first I thought, maybe she's just good at shopping on a budget. But then she got the new iPhone, the just-released kind of new. So I casually asked her, "Hey, how do you afford that?" "Oh," she said, flipping her hair. "My new boyfriend got it for me. He's super generous." I didn't think much of it at the time. Ashley has always had a string of boyfriends who spoiled her. She's the kind of girl guys throw money at, so it wasn't all that surprising. But a few weeks later, things didn't add up. She started showing off even more expensive stuff, high-end headphones, a fancy smartwatch, another designer bag. "Your boyfriend must be loaded," I joked during one of her visits. She just smiled. "Yeah, something like that." I brushed it off and thought, good for her. At least she's not wasting my money on this stuff. Then came the day it all fell apart. I had just gotten home from another exhausting double shift. As I walked in, I heard voices coming from the kitchen, Ashley, my mom, and my dad. They were laughing, loud and carefree, in a way I hadn't heard in years. Then, clear as day, Ashley said, "Honestly, it's hilarious. We haven't spent a dime on school, and he's out there killing himself for it." I froze. My dad chuckled. "Well, it's not like we could tell him about the extra money. He'd lose his mind." Ashley chimed in, "That's perfect. He just thinks I'm dating a rich guy. Meanwhile, I'm getting $1,000 a week. Life has never been better." I stood frozen, my heart pounding in my chest, my breath caught somewhere between shock and rage. $1,000 a week? The words echoed in my mind, each syllable a fresh wound. What were they talking about? The realization hit me like a tidal wave. They had been deceiving me, playing me for a fool all this time. My legs moved before my brain could process the betrayal, carrying me into the kitchen where the carefree laughter of my family, my sister Ashley, my mom, and my dad, died abruptly. Their faces transformed in an instant, caught in a tableau of shock, guilt, and most infuriatingly, a fleeting hint of annoyance, as if I had dared to interrupt their private joke. What did I just hear? My voice trembled with barely contained fury, cutting through the heavy silence. No one spoke. My parents exchanged a quick, uneasy glance, while Ashley's gaze dropped to her shoes, suddenly engrossed in their laces. $1,000 a week? I pressed, my voice rising. You've been funneling her $1,000 every single week while I've been killing myself to cover her tuition? Are you serious right now? My dad cleared his throat, the sound grating against my nerves, as if he could smooth over this betrayal with a rehearsed excuse. Look, we were going to tell you, he began, but I wasn't having it. What, when I collapsed from exhaustion? I snapped, cutting him off. Ashley, who had been silent until now, finally found her voice, her tone dripping with dismissiveness. Okay, chill out. It's not a big deal. You're not exactly destitute, you know. Not a big deal? I repeated, the words tasting bitter, a hollow laugh escaping my lips. Ashley, I've been surviving on instant noodles for months. I sold my car, to make sure your tuition was paid. Do you have any idea what that's like, the sacrifices I've made? My voice cracked, the weight of my efforts crashing down on me as I stood there, staring at the sister I'd given everything for. My mom stepped forward, her hands raised in a futile attempt to calm the storm. "We didn't mean for it to happen like this," she said softly, her eyes pleading. We didn't want to overwhelm you with everything." I stared at her, disbelief coursing through me like poison. "Overwhelm me? You made me believe I was her only hope. You told me you were broke, Mom. You said you had nothing." My father sighed heavily, rubbing his temples as if my anger was an inconvenience. "We had a little saved up," he admitted, his voice low. "It wasn't enough for school, but we thought Ashley deserved something for herself. She's been working so hard." Ashley let out a derisive snort, muttering, "It's not like I begged for it." That was the breaking point. Something inside me snapped, the dam holding back my rage crumbling to pieces. "You didn't beg for it?" I shouted, my voice raw with hurt. "You've been parading around with your new phone, your designer bags, all that garbage, rubbing it in my face. And I'm the fool who's been footing the bill for your education while you live like royalty." Ashley rolled her eyes, her indifference like a slap. "Oh, please, stop acting like some tragic hero. You're the one who volunteered to help." "Because Mom and Dad guilted me into it," I roared, the words tearing out of me. The room fell into a suffocating silence. My parents wouldn't meet my gaze, their eyes fixed on the floor as if they could avoid the wreckage of their deception. I took a step back, the weight of my naivety settling over me like a shroud. "Unbelievable," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "Did you really think I'd never find out?" My father finally spoke, his voice soft but hollow. "We didn't want to hurt you," he said. "We just wanted Ashley to have the best start in life." The words cut deeper than any knife. I laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "And what about me? Do I not matter? Or am I just the family ATM, here to bankroll your lies?" No one answered. The silence was deafening, their refusal to respond to confirmation of my worst fears. The betrayal seared through me, a visceral pain that twisted in my gut. All those sleepless nights spent agonizing over bills, all the weekends I'd sacrificed, the dreams I'd put on hold, all of it for a family that had laughed behind my back, mocking my efforts while they siphoned off my savings. I could still hear Ashley's words, her careless admission, "It's hilarious. He's out there killing himself for it." The memory burned, fueling a fire I hadn't known I could feel. I wasn't going to let them get away with this. I stood there staring at the three of them. My parents, who had raised me to put family first, and my sister, who had taken my sacrifices for granted. The air was thick with tension, the weight of their deceit pressing down on us all. I wanted to scream, to demand an explanation that could somehow make this right, but deep down, I knew there was none. I waited, hoping one of them would find the courage to say something, anything, to lessen the sting of their betrayal. But they didn't. Their silence was an answer in itself, a confirmation that I had been nothing more than a means to an end. Finally I spoke, my voice low and steady despite the storm raging inside me. "Fine. If that's how it is, I'm done." My mother's head snapped up, her eyes wide with panic. "What do you mean, done?" "I mean I'm done," I said, each word deliberate. "Done breaking my back for Ashley's school. Done killing myself for a family that lies to my face. Done being your fool." Ashley scoffed, her voice dripping with disdain. "You're being so dramatic." I ignored her, turning to my parents, who still couldn't meet my eyes. "You want Ashley to have the best start in life? Then you can pay for it. I'm done." As I turned to leave, my father's voice called after me, weak and pleading. "Wait, let's not do anything rash." "Rash?" I spun around, my anger flaring anew. "Rash was you lying to me for a year and a half. Rash was giving her $1,000 a week while I sold everything I had to keep her in school. This is me finally choosing myself." With that, I walked out, the door slamming shut behind me, the sound echoing like the final nail in the coffin of our fractured family. "All right," I said finally, my voice calm but cold. "If that's the way it is, then I'm done." My mother's head shot up. "What do you mean, done?" "I mean I'm done paying for Ashley's school. Done working myself to death for this family. Done being the guy you take advantage of." Ashley scoffed. "You're being so dramatic." I ignored her and turned to my parents. "You want her to have the best start in life? Fine. Then you can pay for it yourselves." My dad tried to protest. "Wait, let's not make any rash decisions here." "Rash?" I interrupted. "Rash was you lying to me for a year and a half. Rash was you giving her $1,000 a week while I struggled to pay her tuition. This is me finally putting myself first." I turned and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" my mother called after me. "To fix this," I said without looking back. The first thing I did was call the college. I explained that I'd been the one paying for Ashley's tuition, and I wanted to see if there was a way to put a hold on her account. They told me that since the payments were coming out of my bank account, I had every right to stop them. I did it right then and there. The next call was to my bank. I'd set up a joint account with my parents to make it easier for them to manage Ashley's expenses while I was at work. Big mistake. I immediately had the account frozen. It was petty, sure, but in the moment I didn't care. They had been using my money to fund Ashley's shopping spree, and I wasn't going to let that continue. When I got home that night, the storm hit. My parents were waiting for me in the living room, and they were furious. "You froze the account?" my dad demanded. "Yes," I said. "What were you thinking?" my mom added. "How is Ashley going to pay for her classes now?" "That's not my problem anymore," I replied. "You've made it clear that I'm just a paycheck to you, so figure it out." Ashley walked in, looking more annoyed than upset. "Seriously, dude? You're just going to screw me over like this?" I looked at her and said, "I didn't screw you over. You did that all by yourself." She opened her mouth to say something, but I cut her off. "I heard you laughing about it, Ashley, about how I was an idiot for paying while you got free money from Mom and Dad. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? I killed myself for you, and you couldn't even say thank you." She rolled her eyes again. "Oh my God, get over yourself." I turned to my parents. "And you too. I hope it was worth it because I'm done. Don't call me for money. Don't ask me for favors. And don't expect me to bail you out of this mess." My mother started to cry. My father just looked defeated. But I didn't feel bad, not. This time I was done being the one they leaned on while they lied to my face. I went to my room, packed a bag, and left the house that night. A few weeks after I left, I began to feel like I could finally breathe again. No more guilt trips, no more constant work to keep up with their demands. For the first time in years, I wasn't living paycheck to paycheck. Then, one Sunday afternoon, there was a knock on my door. It was my mother, looking nervous, holding a casserole dish. "Can we talk?" she asked. I didn't really want to, but I let her in. She sat down at my table, fidgeting while I stood across from her. "We miss you," she said. "It's not the same without you." I crossed my arms. "What do you want?" She hesitated. "We've been thinking, maybe it's time to put this behind us. Start fresh." I stared at her. "Start fresh? After everything?" "I know we made mistakes," she said, "but we're family." I shook my head, not buying it. "You didn't come here to apologize. What do you really want?" She sighed. "All right, we need your help. Things have been difficult since you left." I almost laughed. "Difficult? You mean since I stopped being your ATM?" She didn't answer, just looked down at her hands. I thought about slamming the door on this whole conversation, but instead, an idea came to me. "All right," I finally said. "I'll consider it, but I need access to everything, your accounts, your expenses. No more secrets." She looked startled. "That's not—" "Take it or leave it," I said. After a pause, she nodded. "Fine, I'll talk to your father." Once I had access, it didn't take long to find what they were hiding. They'd been hoarding money in a separate savings account, far more than they'd let on. It wasn't just for Ashley, it was years' worth of hidden cash. I confronted them at a family meeting. "You lied to me," I said, throwing the statements on the table. "You weren't broke. You just didn't want to spend your money." They tried to explain, saying it was for retirement or emergencies, but I didn't listen. This time, I meant it when I walked out. They weren't going to fool me again. With them completely cut off, I focused on moving forward. Weeks turned into months, and while I still felt the sting of betrayal, I began to rebuild. Then, one day, out of the blue, I got a call from Ashley. "I know you don't want to hear from me," she said quickly, "but you need to know what Mom and Dad are doing." I almost hung up, but something in her tone stopped me. "What now?" I asked. "They're trying to get a loan in your name," she said. I froze. "What?" "They're desperate. They haven't been able to keep up with everything since you left. I overheard them talking about using your information to apply for a loan, saying it was their only option." I felt my stomach drop. "You've got to be kidding me." "I just thought you should know," she added. After I hung up, I immediately checked my credit report. Sure enough, there was a new inquiry from a bank I didn't recognize. They'd actually gone through with it. Furious, I went straight to their house. My dad opened the door and looked surprised to see me. "Oh, hey," he started, but I pushed past him into the living room. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out?" I said, holding up the credit report. My mom, who was sitting on the couch, paled. "We can explain," she said. "Explain what?" I snapped. "That you tried to take out a loan in my name after everything you've already done?" My dad jumped in. "We were going to pay it back. It was just temporary." "Temporary?" I interrupted. "You stole from me again." My mom started to cry, saying they were out of options, that they didn't know what else to do, but I wasn't buying it anymore. "You always have an excuse," I said, "but this is it. I'm done with you forever." I walked out of that house knowing that this time there was no coming back. I filed a fraud report the next day, and while I didn't press charges, I made sure their loan application was denied. It hurt to cut them off completely, but sometimes, even family crosses a line you can't come back from. After shutting down their loan scam, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. They were my parents, my family, but there was nothing left to save. They had made their choice, and now I had to make mine. A month later, I received a letter in the mail. It wasn't from a bank or a lawyer. It was from Ashley, handwritten no less. In it, she admitted that she had known more about Mom and Dad's plans than she'd let on. She apologized for going along with it, saying she was afraid of losing the support she'd always counted on. She wrote that seeing me stand up for myself made her realize how much she'd let them control her too. She ended the letter by saying that she wanted to make things right. She had dropped out of college for the semester, gotten a part-time job, and was working on paying me back the money I'd spent on her tuition. I didn't know how to feel. Part of me was still angry, but another part of me felt like maybe, just maybe, she was finally growing up. I didn't answer the letter right away. Instead, I focused on myself, my career, my life, my happiness. For the first time, I didn't have the weight of my family's problems on my shoulders. Months went by before Ashley reached out again. This time, it was a text message. "I know I don't deserve this, but if you're up for it, I'd like to talk. I miss my big brother." I sat with that message for a long time. Finally, I decided to meet her for coffee. When I saw her, she looked different. Not in her clothes or her makeup, but in the way she carried herself. She was calmer, more grounded. She told me she'd been working, saving, and slowly learning to be independent. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said, "but I want to earn your trust back." It wasn't a magic fix. I didn't suddenly forget everything that had happened, but it was a start. As for my parents, I haven't spoken to them since. They've tried to reach out a few times, leaving voicemails about how they're struggling or how they miss me. But I've learned my lesson. Sometimes, family doesn't mean forgiveness. Sometimes, walking away is the only way to truly move on. After meeting Ashley and seeing the changes she was making, I started to feel like maybe there was a way forward. I didn't go back to being her financial crutch, but I slowly let her back into my life. Over time, she proved that she was serious about taking responsibility. She kept her part-time job and even started doing small freelance jobs to cover her own expenses. She enrolled in community college to get her degree at a lower cost, and made it clear that she didn't expect me to bail her out anymore. Still, she struggled at times, especially with the workload and figuring things out on her own. That's where I stepped in, not as her savior, but as her brother. If she needed help proofreading an essay, I'd take a look. If she didn't have enough money for textbooks, I'd occasionally pitch in, but only after she'd exhausted her own efforts. It wasn't like before. There were no guilt trips, no manipulation, just simple help when she really needed it. Eventually, things between us felt normal again. It wasn't perfect, and I still kept my distance from our parents, but Ashley and I found a way to rebuild what we had almost lost. Looking back, I realized that helping her wasn't the problem. It was allowing myself to be taken advantage of. This time, I made sure the boundaries were clear, and she respected them. It wasn't the relationship we had before, but maybe that was for the best. This one felt stronger, built on trust and mutual effort, not lies and guilt. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had my sister back.